Welcome to the Thriving Christian Artist, the podcast where we hope you connect with God to bust through the roadblocks that have held you back for years, create the work you love, and really live the life you know God created you to live as an artist in His kingdom. I'm Matt Tommey, your host. Let's get started. Well, hey everybody, welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad that you're with me today. I've got my friend Joy Morykon, who is here all the way from Florida. Joy, welcome.
Hey Matt,
I'm so glad you're here. We're gonna have a great time. I've so enjoyed getting to know you over the last year or so in the mentoring program, and just finding out about your journey and your family and all these incredible things. We were just talking off camera about the incredible music that your husband does, and I'm sure all that's a huge family affair. So anyway, just can't wait to get to know you a little more today. So, hey, tell me, as we're getting started, a lot of people, when they start their creative journey, it's not just something that happens. There's usually, a story behind that. So tell me, how did you start feeling, gosh, I might be an artist. I might like creativity. How did that start, kind of bubbling up in your life?
Well, for me, it actually started way back. My parents were actually missionaries in Chile, South America, the coastal mountains of Chile. And the artisan villages there are just throughout the whole place.
Absolutely.
The workmanship in copper, in pottery, leather, stones, lapis lazuli, and everything. So it was like a constant part of my life to go to the artisan villages and see this amazing craftsmanship everywhere. So I think that was probably the beginning of just knowing that was in me. I don't actually have a memory of not creating.
Wow.
So it was something I did for comfort, for enjoyment in my room. I spent hours in my room as a kid making pottery, knitting, sewing clothes for my dolls, all kinds of things. I actually had a live-in maid when we lived in Chile who taught me how to knit. She taught me how to make things from, recycled items. And she taught me all kinds of things. And then besides that, my grandmother was a seamstress back in Florida while we lived there. And so her inspiration was huge in my life. She's always, she had a drapery business at one point, and sewing all the time and giving away gifts. So I actually don't have a memory when I didn't know that I was a creative and that I was an artist. So it's literally been in my blood since I was little.
And are you still kind of, I know for a lot of creatives, there's this kind of, I love everything, kind of a multidisciplinary, equal opportunity creator. So
yes, that is actually where I'm at right now, is a lot of discovery in my own personal creativity. So I definitely have a lot of interests, a lot of different things that I love to do. And that is something that I'm working on right now with the Lord, is kind of honing in, my actual creative definition and what it is that I'm bringing that's unique to me. So I'm in that right now. And thankfully to your mentoring group and just having, the opportunity to be able to work through some of those things and go like, wow, I've got a lot of things going on, a lot of things that I love to do, because I can sew and work in clay, and I've, been working on some painting too, not as much, but it's definitely still a part of my journey. And I think just finding out what is the thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, for so many of us, because you mentioned, my journey with the Lord with that. And it's like, I think for many of us, it starts out as, wow, I love to do this thing, whatever it is that I do. And then for me, I know it was like, and wow, I love to do this thing, and Jesus likes this too. He's in the middle of this, process. So talk about how you even discovered that in your own life. When did that connection, I guess, start to happen with your own creativity and your relationship with the Lord and that sort of thing?
Well, I think that my relationship with the Holy Spirit has been kind of ongoing for the last 10 years, I would say. And so when I started to really have a close walk with him, I just started asking, like, where were you in my childhood and how come I didn't know about you? I grew up in the Baptist church. And so at first I was a little bitter, like, where have you been?
Yeah.
And as he showed me my childhood and all those hours I spent in my room and the inspiration from the artisan villages and the way that people created in Chile, he was like, I was in all of that.
Wow.
And he just really showed me that I've never created without him. Like he is the creative energy, but I'm just actually meeting him now. Like, oh, that's what that
You were there the whole time.
You were there the whole time. Yeah, the whole time. And the other thing that I'm discovering too is that every time that I create, I'm actually, reflecting, my creator. I'm reflecting his image. So it's in that. But I've never really done the prophetic art thing. I'm just now learning how to actually hear from the Lord and respond with a piece of art.
Right.
That's a pretty new thing for me, and it's actually something I've been inspired to do from the mentoring program and some of the prompts that you've given us in the Created to Thrive course that we're doing right now. I've really been enjoying that.
Awesome.
But it's a brand new thing for me. Most of my creativity has been useful beauty, and so like creating on, a project kind of basis for me personally.
Yeah.
There was one specific thing though that I was thinking about in regards to that, where the Lord has been a part of my creativity. And there was one event that Brian and I did, excuse me, one event that Brian and I did right when his first album came out. And we both really wanted to create an environment. We wanted to create an event.
Yeah.
A moment, an experience with his music instead of just being, a guy with the guitar.
Sure.
He was like, I don't want to do that. I want to make something beautiful. So we actually collaborated and we did this little event called The Rest. And I sewed pillows. We created these tables. I had a friend that makes the most anointed soup you'll ever try. I mean, his soup will just make you fall out. So she made food and we, collaborated. I had friends together. But in that project, it felt like everything I was making was for the Holy Spirit. It was for people to encounter his presence. And so in that night, people really had beautiful encounters with the Lord. We made journals. I made like clay name tags. I mean, everything was just really thought through and intentional. And so like all of the giftings and the skill sets that I have were able to come together at that place and at that table. And of course, Brian and I got to collaborate. It was really beautiful.
I love that because it really takes so many people have this idea of what prophetic art, is supposed to be or not be. And I've been saying for years, prophetic art is not a painting style. It's, it's a
lot more to it.
Yeah. It's the way the Holy Spirit moves in us, to release his nature in the earth, that we see and agree with him. And so whatever it is, whether it's music or food or business or education or your family or whatever, his creative nature can flow through us in that. And I love that. We were talking about before, we came on today kind of being teary-eyed, and as you were talking, I just really sensed the presence of the Lord really strong, because the thing that I think this always interesting, we go through seasons in our life and you're like, God, where were you? And I didn't even know the Holy Spirit was a person that wanted to create with me when I was a kid. I think the beautiful thing is now about you, and maybe we can transition to talking about this a little bit. You seem to be, from what I know about you now, so intentional about bringing that into your life and bringing it in with your kids, which I think is so beautiful and really special with them. And I remember when you came into the mentoring group, y'all had just come off the road, like being on this trip in an RV, and it was like, we don't even have a house, and we're just going after Jesus and all this, and there's this reckless, beautiful kind of creative expression that I can tell is just all over your family. And so talk about that a little bit, because I think, obviously that's probably out of the box for a lot of people, but it's something really special the Lord's doing in you guys.
Well, there's a lot there, but definitely, just as far as our trip, we spent 18 months on the road with the kids. It was something wild and crazy that I always wanted to do. It was actually never like the thing that Brian wanted to do. So
Yeah, I'll go with you if you want to.
it's really a role reversal. Most of the women I know are like, I'm not going in your RV. But I was the one that was like, babe, it'll be awesome. You know, we can leave the world behind and see America and choose the city we want to live in and whatever. And it was wild. I tell you what, my Instagram looks amazing, but my toilet smelled so terrible. And things are just not always what they seem,
Yeah,
you know?
sure,
And
sure.
let me tell you, it was hard. It was a hard trip. It was beautiful, and we got to meet people, and Brian did some concerts while we were out. We met amazing RVing people, but it was a difficult time in our lives.
Yeah.
And we just realized that traveling and life on the road is hard with kids.
Yeah,
And
sure.
so I think we just came to this place where we had to make some sacrifices of personally of where we thought we might go or where we thought we might be. Tampa was never on our radar to land in Tampa. And then, you know, be able to let go of that for the sake of our family.
Right.
And to be able to be present to what our kids needed, which was, you know, plumbing and bedrooms.
Just the basics.
And
just the basics.
Just the basics. I mean, to have to think about where your plumbing's coming from and, you know, where you're going to get electricity, or are you going to use the microwave, or are you going to use the fridge? Like, that's realities of, you know, cheap RVing when you're kind of.
Now, how many kids do you have again?
I have 3. So
Okay.
I have a 9, I'm sorry, I have 11, 9, and 4.5-year-old
Wow.
who I'm homeschooling, and yeah, spending, you know, most of my days.
So I'm sure a lot of people can, you know, we have one son, and I have friends that, you know, have like 3, 4, 5 kids. I'm like, how do you do this with multiple? So I can't imagine your day, and, you know, you and your husband are both creatives. You're trying to have time to do that, and yet trying to balance that whole thing. I mean, talk about that a little bit, just the whole balancing act.
It's definitely been, you know, a challenge for us, for him, you know, in his creativity, and for me too. We are really, really intentional with the kids and involving them in the things that we're doing, but I'm also really, just really knowing through the Holy Spirit, like, what is my job in this season, and just being present to where I am right now.
Yeah.
Like this mothering Joy, and really being present to that. So for me personally, when I get too far out ahead and I get like into what I'm going to work on, or after the kids grow up, it takes me away from being present with the kids now and what it is that they need.
Yeah.
So just practicing, you know, bringing myself back in and being present to the now is a really big deal for me. But also, Brian is so amazing about giving me time to create. Like he believes in the creativity that's in me. I'm so thankful to have a husband that's like, you know, celebrates that and believes in me. And, you know, I'll give him that look like, babe, I need to like go make something right now. I need to like go. And he's like, oh, you know, sure. And then he'll set aside time. You know, there's one day I was like, babe, I'm just going to go to the beach. But before I go, I'm going to like make myself a dress and go to the beach. He's like, great, go, just do what you need to do. And so that's how I kind of handle it. But then the other thing that I do too is I create with my kids, and it really helps that itch, if you will. I mean, when you're creative, like it's a need. Like I don't create right now because I have a business or because someone else needs any of my creativity, but I need it.
Yeah.
It's for me. And so as long as, like, you know, some people have to get outside every day, or some people have to get to the gym every day. Like I have to have some creativity somewhere, somehow in my day. Yeah. And so when I make room for the kids to do that, it kind of helps me too. So I've been sewing with my girls since they were really little. You know, Lucy sewed her first quilt. She was 6 years old.
Wow.
And now she's actually a designer. So I've taught her how to sketch out a piece and think through it. She cuts through the fabric, and in an hour she's, you know, sewn a bag. And Raimi makes little food for her American Girl doll out of clay and builds a whole room. And like, they're constant creatives, just like me too.
Wow.
And so that even on days where I'm like, oh, I haven't got to get to it, I just look over at them and I'm like, oh, well, it's flowing. You know what I mean? The river is just flowing and I can feel peace. Like, it's going to be okay. I'll get
Absolutely.
to my project tomorrow or whatever. And so, my son even still is, he's getting to his little Picasso stage and painting on the back of paper bags and whatever else he does. And I get a rush. I just get a rush out of it.
Well, and the culture, I think, of creativity that you're establishing in your family and realizing, I mean, you're planting seeds, obviously, in them that are sprouting now and are going to bear such incredible fruit. And
yes.
I think one of the things I've had to learn over the years, and it sounds like you're really resonating in this as well, that whatever season God has you in, that is the anointed season for you. That's where the grace is going to flow. You don't have to worry about, oh gosh, I'm missing out or I'm not able to. No, embrace where you are. And that's just like me. I came off the road from speaking several years ago and doing more online mentoring and focusing here in the studio and that sort of thing. And man, the grace of God has been all over that. And because you can always tell when you're kind of trying to do it the way you think it ought to be done, as opposed to the way the Lord wants to do it. And so I just really I resonate with you in that. And I just think, wow, if everybody could learn to do that, embrace the season that you're in, and know where the Lord's got you. I think about so many of the people that will listen to this podcast at all different stages of their life, that may have grown up without any creativity, or they may be listening to your story like, wow, this is so incredible, but I could never do this, or I have no context for this. I mean, how would you just encourage them today on their journey?
Well, it's funny. I was thinking that exact same thing, was just to be able to know with the Holy Spirit what season you are in.
Yeah.
Because there's rest in that. Every time I start to compare or, look at other moms that are doing all the things or artists that have the studio here or there. And I just think, well, my house is my studio right now. My family is my artwork right now. It's not cutting off the flow of creativity. It's just flowing in a different direction than I am wanting to see one day. And it doesn't mean that it won't happen. I heard someone say one time, you can do anything you want. You just can't do it all right now.
Wow. That's good.
So that's kind of what I keep telling myself when I get into those fits, like, when's it my turn? When will I have my turn? When's it Mama's turn? But one of the things that has really helped me too is, speaking of taking my turn, is that I do take my turn every day to spend time with the Lord and to journal His voice. Yeah. I've been journaling the voice of God for about 3 years now, and just really encountering Him there, and previous to that, encountering Him in my imagination. And so that's a place where I really feel is it has to happen for me. I go there not because it's like my quiet time, but I go there because I'm desperate for it. I have to have it. We learned, we were actually at the 18-inch journey retreat with the Helsers 3 years ago, that when they did it was the shorter weekend one, but they did a workshop on journaling the voice of God, and it was just really powerful. And so I've been doing that for a while, but that's what I would say. Just learn, honestly, like when it comes down to it, I'm like, get yourself a Mark Verkler class and learn to hear the voice of God, because He wants to speak to you, and He wants to speak to you about everything. He wants to speak about everything. So he doesn't just want to tell you who to marry, where to live. When we're with Him, he wants to really like open up and disclose the deep things of our heart and explain to us even why we do the things we do. Those have been the most powerful conversations between me and the Lord, is I'm just like, why am I doing that? Why am I going ahead of you? Why am I trying to do this thing that you're not, that you're not doing? And the biggest thing He's been dealing with me right now is on my worth.
Wow. And
He's just like, if you could see what you are worth to me. He told me just recently that I was worth my weight in gold.
Wow.
And he used the word wait, W-A-I-T.
Wow.
And that I'm worth the wait,
Yeah.
because there are a lot of things I'm waiting on. I'm laying down my life
Sure.
for the sake of my children. That's what true love is, laying down your life for another. In motherhood, that's what you're doing. But to me, hearing from the Lord has got to be the most important key for any artist or anyone else.
Yeah.
To just be able to know yourself with God, to be able to know who he is to you, like Graham says, and discovering more of who you are to him. So,
yeah. Well, I just affirm that there's so much gold in you and your family and all that God's doing. And I just, it's such a beautiful expression, I think, of family and of doing this thing together and making the hard choices and sacrifices, but at the same time living an incredibly beautiful life with creativity and his presence at the core. So really, really just thank you so much for sharing your journey. If people want to get in touch with you, see what you do, follow your journey, Brian's music, where would they do that and that sort of thing?
Well, you'll probably only find 2 Morykons on Facebook, so it won't be a hard search at all. If you know how to spell my last name, you'll find us.
Awesome.
So,
and we'll have a link there on the podcast as well.
Yeah,
so.
I have a couple of Instagram accounts where you can see our journey on the road and things like that if you want to follow along.
Good stuff. And we'll be sharing. You can click right here on the podcast and see those. And Joy, thank you so much. It's really just such a joy to get to know you a little more, and I know people have been so encouraged by your story. So,
thanks so much, Matt, for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right, awesome. Hey, thanks so much for spending a few minutes with me today on the podcast. Listen, I hope it's been a huge encouragement to you on your journey as an artist. Hey, also, before you leave, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of the other episodes of the Thriving Christian Artist podcast. And also, be sure to connect with me on Facebook, Instagram, or at my website, which is matttommeymentoring.com. Until next time, remember, you were created to thrive. Bye-bye.